So for those that are on and have logged in and can hear us speaking, yeah, just stand by. I know we've hit 5 p.m. We'll be giving a few minutes for some additional folks to log in, and we'll be getting started momentarily. And Kayla, just for visibility, I do see that Elena has logged in now.
Wonderful, thanks.
Hello, thank you so much, guys, for helping getting this going.
Oh, not a problem. Elena, was Joe going to be joining us this evening?
Yeah, he will be, but he's going to be in listening mode, is my understanding.
Okay, Elaine, on my end, I'm seeing the number of chats or number of logins starting to slow down. We're a few minutes after 5 o'clock. I see that Joe's on. Are we ready to get started?
Yeah, I think that that's fine unless anyone on the call knows someone is trying to join and is having troubles. But we can go ahead and get started if that's not the case. Thanks.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
yeah.
go
No.
ahead.
I was about to say. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is Ariana Norris. I'm from Cahokia. I was just checking to make sure that my mic was working, so I'll mute myself now.
Great. Appreciate the preparation. No problem. So, Sean, Ashley, unless you guys have any objections, I'm going to go ahead and kick things off here. So as we all know, I am Elena with Senator Durbin's Washington, D.C. team. I have been working closely with the US EPA and the Corps, as well as community members to kind of have an improved dialogue among all of the federal level partners, as well as, you know, local, county, and city level. This evening, we are happy to have the Corps today discussing a proposal for Cahokia Heights and East St. Louis to improve the sanitary water systems. We've been hearing from the community that they really are looking to an outside outside expertise to improve the functioning of this water systems in this area, given there has been a lackluster show of movement in this area. So we're trying to do that with the Corps, and we are happy to have them here with us. And discussing their role here. And so with that, I'll kick it off to Sean and Ashley to lead the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Elena. Appreciate that. And I think that this may be a new platform for some of the attendees this evening. I had heard from Mariana. It looks like she's navigating it pretty well, found out how to get her mic to live status. There is an area that if you are having trouble seeing the cover slide that on your screen, so we will be sharing some slides this evening that we'll be going through. If you're having trouble seeing that, the best way for you to improve upon the clarity of it is just above where you see the slide on your screen is a plus and a minus sign. And you can click on that plus sign and increase the resolution of the slide so that you can see it better on your end. I really don't have a way on my end to help to improve the clarity. The other piece to this is with this WebEx platform, virtual platform, there is a double mute function. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the unmute feature, so you'll need to unmute that. And if you did happen to call in by phone, you'll also need to unmute your phone when we get to the kind of the question and answer phase for our engagement this evening. So I think those are the primary features. There is also a chat feature that is on the right-hand side of your screen that you can type into, and there's been a few back and forth there that you can see that's within that chat piece as well. That if you have a question that comes up during the briefing tonight, that go ahead and type your question into the chat, and then after we're done with the briefing, then we can get to that to those questions. The other part to this, I believe that there's going to be a recording that takes place this evening, so there'll be a recording of our session, and so I'm just providing visibility to those attendees on that we are being recorded or will be recorded here. And with that, we will then be providing this briefing and the overall recording on our website, and I'll provide that web address at the end of at the conclusion of the slide deck tonight. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We've got a number of attendees. I do see we do have an EPA, Ronna Beckman from US EPA Region 5 that's on. And so that's obviously a federal agency supporter that's on this evening. I do see a representative on also from the Heartlands Conservancy that's also plugged in and implementing the Prairie du Pont watershed study. So there's some synergies there as well. And I do recognize some other names in the queue. So anyway, from that standpoint, we'll go ahead and dive into the briefing. And like I said, if you do have a question tonight, type it into the chat. Otherwise, if, at the end of the presentation and such, we will have an opportunity to open up for question and answer. If you don't get your question into the chat, we can also take questions over the mic as well. So with that, my name is Sean Sullivan, Corps of Engineers out of the St. Louis District. Within the photo there, if you're seeing my cursor move, just on the left side of the arch behind the old Millennial Hotel is where our office is physically located. So we're in downtown St. Louis near the riverfront, not on the riverfront, but just a short hop across the river from the Cahokia Heights area. I myself live in St. Clair County. I've been a resident, born and raised in St. Clair County, in the southwest part of the county. It's southeast part of the county itself. So work in the project management division, strategic planning coordinator, and then I also have with me tonight Ashley Rasnick, project manager. So we'll be tag teaming this particular event tonight. The other piece, I think from just the perspective of the Corps of Engineers, what's our primary mission responsibility? It's to provide that engineering and water resource solutions that improve the safety, energize the economy, sustain the environment, and enhance the quality of life for those that we serve through expertise, innovation, and ultimately partnerships. And you'll hear a little bit about partnerships this evening. I think the best way that we like to pare that mission down, there's a lot of different things that we do, but to sum it up in 3 simple points, we protect people from water, protect water from people, and we make water useful. So that's really our mission in a nutshell. Let me make sure that we're sharing the briefing there. Ashley, I'm going to make sure that you're seeing the screen properly. So Ashley, can you give me either a thumbs up that the presentation is sharing properly on your end?
Yep, it's sharing.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right. Let me advance that forward. All right, so the agenda for tonight, I'm going to give you just a quick regional update just to put things into context and perspective as far as where Cahokia Heights sits in the overall American Bottoms area. The American Bottoms area is the largest urbanized floodplain north of New Orleans. Also want to give you just a quick project and technical assistance overview. That's the services that we're specifically providing in the community. I also want to dive in specifically to the wastewater infrastructure assistance. When I say that's where my colleague, Ashley Rasnick, will be stepping in as the project manager and providing an overview to do a little bit more of a deep dive into the process for the wastewater infrastructure assistance project that we're looking to help the community with. Also just cover quickly a flood hazard analysis, so that's technical assistance and support that we would be providing to the community in conjunction with the city of East St. Louis, just based upon where the municipal geographies exist and municipal lines exist for that particular Canal 1 watershed. And then also want to just give a quick overview as it relates to the engagement and coordination thus far, just to demonstrate how we've been able to plug in, hear from community members, and then also integrate or engage with just a large, broad interagency partnership that's heavily focused in the Cahokia Heights area. So from that regional context slide, the specific piece that I wanted to talk to is the Metro East levees update, Metro East levee systems. There is a series of 5 levee systems that protect kind of that American Bottoms area, specifically from the community of Alton, Illinois, down to the south of, just to the south of Dupont, Illinois. So it's a series of 5 federal levee systems that reduces flood risk to $13.3 billion in property value. 280,000 residents reside within these levied areas. So far, these levee systems have prevented $18.9 billion in economic damages. One big test to these levee systems occurred in the flood in 1993. 300-year flood record revealed poor levee system performance. Under seepage was a problem. Water flowing underneath the levees through existing ground surface elevation, undermining the foundation soils that the levee sits on top of, can create voids underneath and cause a disruption to the foundation of that levee and result in a breach prior to the levee being overtopped, which would be devastating, obviously, to the Metro East communities. 2007, Federal Emergency Management Agency announced that in an intent to de-accredit the levees is reducing flood risk to that base 100-year flood, or a flood that has a 1% chance of occurring in any given year. The Illinois General Assembly reacted, provided and approved a sales tax for the counties of of Madison, St. Clair, and Monroe counties, Illinois, a 1/4-cent sales tax. So I told you earlier that I live in southeast St. Clair County. Every time I'm buying an item in St. Clair County, I'm paying a portion of that sales tax. 1/4-cent sales tax is going towards investment into this levy series of levy systems. To date, over $220 million in federal and local investment have occurred in these levy systems. They've been the East St. Louis levy system. Of that 220, 156.3 million of that 220 million has been invested in the East St. Louis levy system. So the system is kind of broken to a flank levy up to the north, and then separated by the Chain of Rocks levy system by the Chain of Rocks Canal, and then you get back into the actual federal levy, or to the East St. Louis levy segment down here to the south in the orange line here. And what are you most concerned with? Where do you live? And so that red star identifies the Cahokia Heights, East St. Louis area as far as its location within the Metro East levy system. What did all of this investment reveal? Well, the 2019, we had the second highest flood record in the city of St. Louis and on south through our 300 miles of inland waterway that we manage. And with that, that second highest flood record, longest consecutive days of flooding on record. So 126 consecutive days of the Mississippi River being above flood stage. So that set a record. And what we found was that those investments have improved levee system performance and reduced the flood risk. How do we know that? We know that how the levee system performed. We also know that through FEMA's decision back at the end of April to accredit these levee systems again. And so all 5 of these levee systems have been accredited as excluding that 100-year flood event, or a flood that has a 1% chance of occurring in any given year. And so that those investments that have been made have improved levee system performance and were recently tested during the 2019 flood event. So what are we doing specifically about the challenges that are faced, that the residents within Cahokia Heights are facing? And there's 2 specific areas that we're currently evaluating to provide 2 specific types of assistance. So we do what Congress authorizes us and appropriates funds for us to do. And so the first area that we're evaluating, I'm going to put the mute there just for a second. The current area that we're evaluating is area number 1. That doesn't mean priority. It's just a way to distinguish the specific area that we're focusing on, and a way to, in essence, delineate assistance type 1 versus assistance type 2. They're not done in priority. The other piece, so the area number 1 was wastewater infrastructure assistance project. So that wastewater infrastructure assistance, that's a location where we're evaluating a trunk sewer line for possible improvements in a rather long section of trunk sewer to basically improve the resiliency of that structure into the future and the performance of it. And that project, and when you see that key tag project, that means that we're in the process of currently evaluating it, and that it can lead to actual physical construction assistance or support, or physical construction improvement to that piece of infrastructure. The other piece is in area 2, which I think is commonly referred to as ping pong. That's an area that includes both North Centerville, or formerly what was North Centerville, and then also a piece of the East St. Louis municipality. And with that, we'll be conducting a flood hazard analysis and coming out with mitigation recommendations to reduce that flood risk within that area. And I'll dive more into that. So from this point forward, we're really going to be diving into those 2 forms of assistance that we're going to be providing within the community. So item number 1 are just from a timeline from the wastewater infrastructure assistance part of this, is that it's by authority, it's under the Section 219 Environmental Infrastructure Program. The specific project that is called out is called Madison and St. Clair Counties, Illinois. So you see on the map on the right-hand side, that's the geographic area that we have the authority to provide water and wastewater infrastructure assistance. From 2001, when we originally got the authority, it had a $10 million federal limit. So that was like you can't spend more than what Congress has authorized this in the actual authorization. We supported a number of communities. We supported East St. Louis, Belleville, Manioki, and Venice, Illinois, with actual direct construction assistance. And then we also provided some design assistance to Glen Carbon. We ultimately hit that $10 million authority in 2013. So we reached that authorized funding limit. We could not spend or provide assistance to any other communities beyond that. 2018, so there was this 5-year pause in that we couldn't provide assistance. We didn't have a way to, or Congress rather, did not have a way to increase that authorized federal funding limit. And then in the Water Resources Development Act of 2018, it provided the opportunity for Congress to make modifications to the authorized federal funding limit. So we reacted, worked in this case with Senator Duckworth, because she's on the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, instrumental committee to the Corps of Engineers for authorizations, where Senator Durbin is instrumental to the appropriations side of Congress, and we work obviously with his staff closely as well. So Senator Duckworth, in conjunction with Congressman Boss, were able to help enable an increase in the authorized federal funding limit. It was increased from $10 million to $45 million, and we saw that legislation come into being in December of 2020 under the Water Resources Development Act. So after the enactment of WRDA increasing us from $10 million to $45 million, what did we do? Well, we started coordinating with the state of Illinois, informing them of that recent increase. In April of 2021, April of 2021, so we got the authorization in December of 2020, April of 2021, we received a letter of intent from the state of Illinois. That gave us the ability to budget, to provide support in the community. So we made that submission in the fiscal year 22 appropriations, actually under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. We received $25,000 to provide that direct project-related assistance for wastewater infrastructure through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That was signed by the president in November of 2021. Senator Durbin was his office. The senator was instrumental in enabling the funding through that what we call IJA is the acronym, providing that funds to be able to initiate that support. So then what did we do? We initiated the letter report to document the construction assistance project. Then we got to be thinking ahead, not what about we're doing right now, but we're also looking at budgeting for construction. And so we submitted a budget package back in the spring of this year for fiscal year 23 funding. The senator has supported that $3.5 million construction package through that earmark process or community directed funding process for fiscal year 23 appropriation. And then we're standing by to see whether that appropriation for construction comes to pass. There's a lengthy process within Congress that's worked to be able to get to the point of an appropriations bill for fiscal year 23. So with that, what I want to do is pass the baton off to Ashley and have Ashley talk about the specific assistance that we're currently providing through the documentation of a letter report so that we can justify a federal project going forward. So Ashley, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ashley Rasnick, as Sean mentioned. I'm one of the project managers at the St. Louis District Office for the Army Corps of Engineers. I've been working with the Corps of Engineers for almost 13 years and been involved with our environmental infrastructure projects since then, particularly Madison and St. Clair counties. So I've been involved with several of those projects that Sean had mentioned earlier. So, in reference to the specific project, proposed project for the Cahokia Heights area for this wastewater infrastructure assistance, in looking ahead at this initial increment of proposed work that where we should focus, we've coordinated with the local government and US EPA counterparts for validation on where and what we should focus this initial increment of work on. The requested assistance was for the trenchless sewer rehabilitation of the sanitary sewer trunk line. It's outlined in the bottom left-hand map there. You can see the incorporated limits of the new Cahokia Heights area, and that general area outlined in the red circle is the area where the trunk line sewer rehabilitation proposed project is located. So what's important about this section, and why is it important to focus on this as the initial increment of work? This is a critical portion of the sanitary sewer infrastructure that supports the entire city. If there's failures in this part of the city, then it impacts anything upstream from this section and prevents sanitary sewer flows coming from throughout the city and ultimately carrying on to the wastewater treatment plant up in the American Bottoms area. So this particular area has had experienced significant failures over the recent years. And if you have to repair these in a traditional manner and excavate, like an open excavation repair, it can be problematic because you have to bypass the flows, you have to dewater the groundwaters, and there's also that potential for safety issues within close proximity of the streets and highways that this sewer line runs. So the recommendation for this proposed project is rehabilitation via cured in place pipe, which doesn't require any open excavation. It corrects the pipe deficiencies, the cracks, the breaks, by entering the pipes. I saw some chat pop up there. Sorry about that. It repairs the pipe without requiring open excavation by shooting by slip lining the actual pipe to be repaired. So you're reducing the amount of open excavation that's required, and you restore that structural stability back to the pipeline there. Sorry, I was trying to read the chats, and I don't want to miss anyone's questions there. I think Sean's assisting with responses. So it's important to address this section of pipe to prevent these failures and more large and expensive repairs once there is a failure, instead of just repairing just a minor crack or breaks in the system. As noted on the slide, this section receives all of the flow coming from the tributary lines before it reaches that pump station, and then ultimately gets transported into the American Bottoms wastewater treatment plant.
Ashley, I apologize. I want to just say, for the folks on the phone that cannot see what's being discussed in the chat, Nicole requested for information. Oh, and I apologize. This is Elena with Senator Durbin. Nicole requested information on what intersection the trunk line is, and Sean with the Corps said downstream is Levin Drive and Water Street. upslope limit may be Jerome Lane and Mooseette, but is dependent on the cost. And I think we may potentially during Q&A want to go into a bit of the slip line of what, of the slip line implications. So I just wanted to kind of provide a little bit of context of some of the discussions going on in the chat. I hope that that's sufficient. If anybody has any further questions, please pipe up, or we also have a Q&A session towards the end of the presentation. That's it for me. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note, in areas where there is a sanitary sewer overflow or a failure or a break in the system that has to be repaired, those sanitary sewer overflows can adversely affect human health, downgrade the water quality into receiving waters, and part of which is the case ongoing in the city and part of what is subject of the US EPA Region 5 administrative order that was released in August of 2021. So there's definitely a significant amount of value for repair and prevention of additional failures within this section of the system. John, if you want to pipe to the next slide. So talk a little bit more specifically about the letter report. This was what we were provided funding. The letter report is where we document the requested proposed project and are seeking approval to move forward to the next step in the process. So the report for the schedule for the letter report, we received funding in March of 2022 for the project construction. We were given the go to utilize that funding that was provided and kicked off the main portion of letter report documentation in June of 2022. We are currently finalizing the letter report and the associated environmental assessment. And the environmental assessment is projected for release for public review here in late July. So we'll be sharing that information on where you can read information on the environmental assessment and environmental compliance related to the proposed project. It'll be out there for public comment. We're projecting to finalize the review and approval process for the letter report. We obtain approval from our higher headquarters at our division office, and that would wrap up the portion of the letter report. And then we would be, as Sean mentioned, we've already submitted a request for the work plan package for FY23 for the project construction, and we did so in March. And then that's kind of where we're at with the knowns. We are anticipating potential to receive funding if budgeted in FY23 in March of 2023. So the last 4 items in the schedule is based on our anticipated receipt of potential funding that we do not know at this time if we've received. But pending receipt of those funds, we would coordinate and negotiate a cost sharing agreement with the city. This wastewater assistance program is a 75% federal portion and 25% sponsor funded. So we do cost share the cost of the project with the sponsor, who at this point is the city of Cahokia Heights. We would project to execute that cost sharing agreement in July, and then we would move towards a contract award in November of 2023. And that's all dependent on receipt of funding in roughly the springtime. So the next couple of slides give a little bit more details into the letter report contents. It is a high level document of kind of the general purpose, which, as we've mentioned, is for the rehabilitation of a section of sanitary trunk sewer within the city of Cahokia Heights. The authority is the Section 219 authority that we've referenced. Sponsor being the city of Cahokia Heights. We also document the financial capability of the sponsor to be able to provide their 25% share, a brief description of the project, the status of our environmental compliance, which will be coming out here soon for public comment in the environmental assessment, a projected cost of that proposed infrastructure assistance, a schedule for the actual implementation, and the partnership requirements that will be kind of what we document within that cost sharing agreement. Particularly, the sponsor is responsible for 25% of the total cost. Those costs, that 25% can come in the form of cash, potential in-kind contributions, or credits for real estate, such as lands, easements, right-of-way, relocations, or dredge material disposal areas. Those are what we refer to as LERDs. And then it also documents the implementation responsibilities, which we thought was important to highlight here. So we're going to look at those a little bit more in detail on the next slide. So I think it's important to note that the city, through their civil engineer, Hirsch Roche, they are providing the actual design in the form of plans and specification of the proposed project, and those will be submitted to the Corps of Engineers for our review and implementation. The review of these plans and specs will be performed by a group of technical reviewers at the Corps of Engineers. We will format the plans and specs into the core standards for what we need to be able to implement the project. And we will complete what we refer to as a BCOES review. This is to look for the biddability, constructability, operability, environmental, and sustainability. We review the sponsor provided designs to be able to construct and bid and implement the project. And then the Corps is the one that actually advertises and awards a competitive contract after we've executed that project partnership agreement and receive both the federal and non-federal sponsor share of implementation. So the Corps is the one that once it's advertised and awarded, the Corps will actually perform the quality assurance and overall management of the contract administration and contract construction and inspection activities during construction. So we're the boots on the ground doing overseeing the actual implementation of the project. And similar to other federal projects, after construction is complete, the city is responsible for all of the future O&M or operation and maintenance, repair, rehabilitation and replacement of the actual completed project.
Really quick, Sean, would you mind going back to that previous slide? This is Elena with Senator Durbin, folks. I just want to kind of emphasize that these implementation responsibilities are standard, to my understanding, are standard across the Corps' national operations. This is not unique to Cahokia Heights or this project. And the competitive contract process is very robust and, like I said, not unique and is a standard across all Corps implementation. So what this means is that they publish the contract and allow private companies to bid and present a implementation plan, and which the Corps reviews, and in very simple terms. I'm sure it's much more detailed than this, but just for everybody's understanding, because I know that there is a lot of concern over who will be the ones doing the work. And this is done with federal oversight from the Corps by a local contractor. And my understanding is that Hearst Roche will not be able to compete for the contract. Is that correct, Ashley or Sean?
Yeah, go ahead. That is correct, Elena. And I was just standing by to see if Ashley was going to respond, as she's more familiar with the contract selection process, but and has a ton of experience working both on the Illinois and Missouri side with contract awards associated with support for these type projects. Ashley, anything more to add?
Yeah, no, I was trying to come off mute. So I would agree with your statement there. They would not be able to bid as the designer on record.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Nicole.
I'll ask in the Q&A. Totally fine.
Okay, great. And just so everybody knows, we are, Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth are still very aware of the concerns with maintenance, operations, and the like. So feel free to discuss that in the Q&A as well. But unfortunately, the Corps is not able to maintain the infrastructure after they've completed the project. That is on the city. And that's it for me. Thanks, folks.
Yeah, thank you, Elena. And the key word there, infrastructure assistance, and unfortunately, we don't. Many projects, when a federal action is taken, it federalizes the situation. But in the case of water or wastewater infrastructure, it does not. We assist the local jurisdiction with the specific assistance that's needed. We're oftentimes focused on a piece of a overall larger problem, but that is the way that the authority is put in place and is addressed on a national level. Elena, as you had mentioned, the project partnership agreement is a national standard. The process that's put in place here is a process and a standard that's applied for the many jurisdictions that the Corps of Engineers serves across the nation. And that project partnership agreement is located on our headquarters webpage and is in a national standard template. So it is a set of agreed upon conditions within the agreement itself. If there is a change that is requested by the non-federal sponsor who we're partnering with, then that is considered a deviation, requires higher level review, and completely stalls out the process. So we have oftentimes when we're saying we're executing this agreement, it's in essence, you abide by our terms, just bottom line up front. So I'm going to shift gears and talk about the.
Sean,
yeah.
This is Joe in Senator Durbin's office. Before you guys switch gears to the other project that you are considering working on in the area, I saw some questions in the chat specifically about the location of the trunk line and the location that you all are considering focusing on for this project. And we had the same questions when we first talked to you all about this plan, like why this particular area. This isn't necessarily what the location of that trunk line isn't exactly the locations we've been hearing from residents about. Why did the Corps decide to focus there first? And again, I want to say first because this could be the first of several projects that the Corps is able to do for this area. But can you all speak to that a little bit more about why this particular area of the trunk line and why that impacts so many other areas of the city?
Yeah. So thanks, Joe. I think that why did we focus there on the trunk line first? Basically comes down as we had identified that we were providing assistance to the local sponsor. It was an area that was identified as a primary need. that if the main trunk line system or main trunk sewer goes down, then the entire community's sanitary transport system goes down. It becomes the bottleneck. And I think that a prime example is when we went out and visited kind of drove the alignment that had been indicated to us, that right in the smack middle of Jerome Lane was a storm inlet or sanitary sewer inlet that is collapsed, and there's a barricade up on the road. So slip lining is basically a pipe within the pipe that basically reduces the breaks and cracks and helps to bolster the longevity of that critical piece of conduit through the community. So the other piece is that it reduces the amount if you're eliminating cracks and breaks, then it reduces the amount of inflow, or rather infiltration into the main trunk line, and helps from an efficiency standpoint for wastewater processing, and ultimately transport to the American Bottoms wastewater treatment plant. So with
Sean,
that,
can I jump in with a few questions? And maybe this is also directed to US EPA, because what I hear you saying is essentially the local government folks told us that this is the highest priority. And I think given the concern that the local government folks haven't really known what to fix for decades, that's not the most convincing source of priority. Did Hearst Roche say that in their engineering judgment, based on their years of working with the system, that this is the highest priority sewer project to be done? Like, did the engineers themselves recommend it, or are they just being told to scope it after the city officials, who aren't themselves engineers, said we want this done?
Yeah, so first off, I wasn't done responding. So there's two components to this. One, how did the local jurisdiction inform? Through their engineer, their professional engineer, Hearst Roche. So yes, the data did come, or the request came through Hearst Roche, but then we don't take that information in a vacuum and just run with it. We validate it through other federal partners through US EPA Region 5. So we were able to coordinate and use the request as a sounding board. Is this the right location, or a right location, not the right location, but a wise investment of federal funds? Because as we know, federal funds are not infinite. So using
Sure.
US EPA as a sounding board. I think the other piece to this is how does all of the other investment that's occurring within the community, whether it's through Illinois EPA grant, or whether it's through other committed or other directed funds that are coming in through American Recovery Plan Act that was directed by the governor, how do all of those other items fit into the improvements that are being made within the community? And I don't have the answer to that because it's not the Corps of Engineers' responsibility, but it is a piece that we maintain visibility and awareness on.
Understood. I think what I'm trying to say is every project idea that originates with the local government officials should be viewed with a high degree of skepticism as to whether that's the area of highest need. And I understand from some folks that the areas that have been identified for work are areas where elected officials live, and therefore might be high on their list of to-dos for reasons other than the greatest good to the overall community. So I also understand, and I can't fully share all this information, but I believe that there are people on the record from Hearst Roche who have questioned the usefulness of the trunk lining projects in general. So again, you have to understand that there's a lot of history here that we have been trying to unpack. And so when we hear trunk lining project in an area near where officials live, there's got to be a really robust showing, not just that makes sense to invest here, but this is the highest and best use as best we can tell right now. And it sounds like that wasn't necessarily the determination. The determination was it's a good use. But like you said, the money is limited. And is this the best use? And what if we pulled together that shows that this is our best guess at what's highest value right now? And that's what I'm just not hearing in terms of the showing. If you guys have that information and can put it out in a real clear summary form to the community of like, there were 3 different projects that we looked at. We dug into each of them. We decided, you know, based on the merits of each, looking at the benefit to the community, that this really rose to the top. Great, but that's not what I'm hearing.
So for $25,000, what you've asked us to do is a full-blown feasibility study, which we're not authorized to do under this authority. We assist the local jurisdiction. We don't have the ability to do a feasibility study on a comprehensive analysis of the entire sanitary sewer network for Cahokia Heights. We're not authorized to do that. We are not funded to do that. There is a.
But again, did you ask Hearst Roche itself, independent of what you asked the local government, to provide its independent professional judgment as to the highest and best use?
For their independent and through coordination meetings, yes. Where is the right area to focus? And as this project was presented to us, that it was identified as a location that serves the greater good for the entire Cahokia Heights area. I mean, in just practicality, from a common sense standpoint, the entire trunk sewer line serves the entire community itself. And I think is also identified that there had been the area that's in blue on this particular slide here is an area that has already been slip lined in the past. Now there's questions as to how long ago was that slip lined, what is the current integrity of that particular slip lining project, is that the right limits of it, but it makes sense just from a common sense standpoint that this primary transport serves as a transport system through the entire community and is in need of repair. And when you drive Jerome Lane and you start to see the collapse of a sanitary sewer inlet, that gives pause or reason to indicate that there is a problem under your feet in the middle of the roadway that is in need of further fortification, I guess you would say.
Hey, Sean, this is Nicole. Since East St. Louis's system feeds into the Centerville system, which is now Cahokia Heights, were they consulted and asked at all was their input asked at all, since obviously their system is affected, and I think we all know, at least most know at this point, the Centerville and Greater Cahokia Heights areas, all of their systems are affected by East St. Louis. Was their input provided as far as where a trunk line or if a trunk line would be useful or helpful in these discussions?
So with East St. Louis has both a separate sewer system and a combined. The primary area that of East St. Louis that's in closest proximity to Cahokia Heights, and that specifically in the North Centerville area is actually separate. So there has been indications that there may be an interceptor system that is an interceptor line that is brought down from that North Centerville location and taps into the trunk sewer line here, which then would in essence completely separate Cahokia Heights off of East St. Louis's sewer system. I think that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Did you guys get a chance to talk to East St. Louis and Cahokia Heights?
Sorry, I went into the elements of the project.
Okay, yeah, it's okay.
But yes, through the city manager and also through Thompson Civil, who's the city East St. Louis's civil engineer. We did meet with them end of May. I'd have to go back and get the date. In fact, I may have that date embedded in my later slides. So I do have 3 slides that are left, one content, one just visual reference, and then just one final slide for where can you go and obtain information. So from a flood hazard analysis side of things, so this is that North Centerville location that was being referenced. The area, just kind of the circle, just generally references the geographic area that we would be evaluating. I think some folks refer to this as the ping pong area. This area does contain both the municipal jurisdiction of Cahokia Heights and then also for East St. Louis itself. If you see in the bottom right, the aerial photo there directly kind of delineates the specific location that we would be evaluating under our Floodplain Management Services Authority to make recommendations to reduce future flood impacts to the communities and specifically to the residents in those locations. Now, the question may be that, so Sean, there's a larger watershed that drains into the red box that you're identifying. And so part of the hydraulic and hydrology analysis is going to evaluate that watershed area that drains into that red box. And so we're not going to be just looking with blinders on at, what actions or recommendations could be taken to mitigate flood risk here, detain stormwater, but also what can occur outside of the red box. And I'm specifically referring to some of that upslope detention that I know that many are concerned with, the runoff coming out of the bluff area on the east side of Illinois Route 157. So with that, this particular assistance does not lead to construction. This leads to an engineering report with the Corps of Engineers Castle on it, providing recommendations back to the local jurisdictions, both to the city of East St. Louis and to Cahokia Heights. With that engineering analysis, we also get into some conceptual level design, so roughly a 10% design, and then also get into the rough order magnitude cost estimates to complement that particular design. Then what that report does is that it does help enable that local jurisdiction to do for themselves, meaning that they can leverage funds from other sources through grant sources to ultimately implement the recommendations that are identified within that red outlined area. So this is a service that we're in the process of kicking off. We originally identified that we thought that we could get it started in mid-May. It led to some follow-on conversations with the city of East St. Louis. That occurred in late May. That information helped us to further refine and our scope of work. And then now we're in the process of preparing to kick off and start to move forward with our analysis in that area. What are some of the recommended solutions? We're talking about channel cleanout widening, and you're going to say, Sean, there's already been some of that done. Yes, you're correct. There's been some of that has occurred, but there are also locations that I've seen where there's just driving down 157, I'm seeing locations where there's a little bit of a hydraulic jump. Why is that happening? If there's a hydraulic jump, is it accumulated sediment that needs to be addressed that may back some water up in that location? So there are still plenty of drainage improvements that could occur and will be evaluated within this particular area. The other part is pipes and culverts. And when I talk about pipes, I'm talking about storm sewer system present specifically within the old Centerville area that's kind of within the southern, more less densely developed piece to the area outlined in red. Do we potentially look at a separate storm sewer system there? Do we, obviously with the culvert piece, there's culverts that are on the surface. Many of them are clogged up, and many of them some of them are actually collapsed. Some recommendations for just ditch improvements and drainage improvements there. The other one is Parkside Pump Station. That's a pump station that's owned and operated by the city of St. Louis. It's got 3 actual pumps that are located within it. 2 are fully functional, a third is not. The third pump within that pump station is not fully operational. The other piece is there's some capacity limitations that are preventing the 2 operable pumps from operating at its full capacity. What is causing that? We don't know. We need to get in and evaluate it. Again, it's East St. Louis infrastructure, but this is the type of analysis that we can use our mechanical engineers to step in to evaluate, provide recommendations on what kind of improvements can be done to get that pump station up and fully operational to provide benefits not only to East St. Louis, but also in this case to Cahokia Heights. And then we also talked about some of the upland detention and if there's any potential for any of the lowland detention there as well. All right.
Hey, Sean,
Engagements.
Can I just ask a quick clarifying question on the proposed solutions? So when you say things like upland detention, downstream detention or whatever, can you describe what you mean by where that's located geographically with respect to the different components of, like, here are the bluffs, here's the highway, here's the community. What do you mean when you say upland detention versus downland detention?
Yeah, so on the upland detention side, that would be anything to the right side of the red line. The red line would be the eastern boundary of kind of the project area would be evaluating. It's commensurate with Illinois Route 157. As you guys all know, that there's drainage that comes out of the bluff area, which this is hopefully you're seeing my cursor move, but this is the bluff area on the east side. There's a couple little tributary networks that you can see within the within the yellow outlined area with some pretty sufficient drainage area associated with them that drains into the area of concern. So with that, on detention, is there a potential to find some open space, green space locations that some of that upstream detention could be implemented? And you'll see some green space locations within that. So you're looking at ownership, who owns that, what is the likelihood that that type of feature could be implemented in that upland area. And then from the lowland side of things,
Sorry, just to try to interpret some of this. So does that essentially mean trying to figure out ways to prevent some of the water that's coming off the bluff from getting to 157 in the community, sort of to, before you even get across 157, or does it mean something else?
It means intercepting that water before it gets to the west side of 157 into the red box area.
Got it. Thank you.
And then on the when I use the word low. When I use the word lowland detention, it just means within the red box. The bluff area is obviously the high ground. The area within the red box is the low ground. Is there an area or areas within this red box that could entertain that? Now, within the area, we can't presume where that would go, but what I will say is that acquisitions, buyouts are not within the scope of our analysis here. So we're not talking about moving people or moving structures out for the purpose of detention. It's that where are there areas, current open spaces that could be used for water storage, green infrastructure purposes, to detain water and keep it out of your yards, basically bottom line, and more specifically out of your homes, out of your basements, out of your first floor elevation. All right, so just from an engagements and coordination standpoint, this slide has not changed since we started developing it, and I think it was in December of 2021. I think it was probably an engagement with Joe Bichon and Elena, who's on the call tonight, with Senator Durbin's office, so they can validate what I say here. But I will. Our really engagements started in March 2nd with this Centerville Citizens Committee for Change, and we were served as a listening audience, if you will. I believe we weren't able to communicate during that Zoom call, but we were able to provide some comments in the chat and such. But it was your group that helped to raise the visibility of the problems that are occurring within the Cahokia Heights area. And so it was through that process that we got engaged when we heard about your meeting, and then that started then this host of engagements of even where we're at today. So just a reference on how we're trying to plug in, fully understand the issues that are occurring within Cahokia Heights. How can we support the community within congressional authorization and appropriation to provide support where we can, and also connect with the efforts of others. I'd mentioned that a representative from Heartland's Conservancy is on the phone. We're part of the technical committee for that effort. We've been in coordination with USGS, getting them plugged in because they have the science and monitoring capabilities. So we've been able to plug in with them and get them involved on some assistance that they can provide for monitoring and science-based purposes, connecting with US EPA staff that are involved for ensuring compliance with administrative orders that have been put in place. So lots of different engagements to include a more recent FEMA hazard mitigation and infrastructure task force that's being stood up. And I believe it's some of the same individuals that were involved within the Flint, Michigan task force. So getting embedded into that as well, being able to share the information that we know about the area based on our proximity, but also helping to raise awareness and about the support that we're providing to the community, and what are some of those other needs that the community has. So with that, what I would say is I've got myself and Ashley's contact information. With that, you can, on my contact information, you can feel free. I know Elena from Senator Durbin's office had mentioned who is that point of contact that residents can reach out to from the Corps. So my contact information is there. I've got some visibility and awareness, obviously, on the wastewater infrastructure assistance that Ashley and her team are running. I've got visibility and awareness with the flood hazard analysis. And so if I don't have the answer, I can get to the touch points that can help find that answer for you. The other piece is the presentation that we have this evening. The slides will be available on the web link that's identified there at the kind of the bottom of the screen, which I'll kind of just generally circle that with my cursor. And then if you're a social media expert, there's all of these other opportunities that exist to connect with the Corps of Engineers and stay up to date through our social media outlets, which we do have a representative on the phone tonight from our public affairs office as well. So what I would say is the presentation will be loaded by tomorrow afternoon. And so if you go to that link and want to stay up to date on current status, if you want to know and understand a little bit more about the two forms of assistance that the Corps of Engineers is providing to Cahokia Heights, to include a piece of East St. Louis, that information, like I said, will be available to the public. So with that, that concludes the kind of the briefing materials, and we can open it up to questions.
For those on the call this evening, this is Elena with Senator Durbin. You or someone you know shared the information that I put out on email And so feel free to reach out to me directly if you need assistance locating the presentation, the website, contact information, and the like. I'm here to make myself readily available. So please do not hesitate to use the email that was used to share the information for this evening, and I will also put it in the chat. Thank you. And I see Miss Norris Landry with her hand up, and I would like to let her speak.
Hello.
Yeah, hey,
hoping
we can
this-
hear you, Ariana.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate being included on this call. I've been working, okay, let me start at the beginning. My name is Ariana Norris Landry. I moved to Cahokia in 2014. And by May of 2015, the Mississippi was in my basement. I then found out that this wasn't an uncommon occurrence in this town. And I started seeing other things. I have a degree in geology and I started looking. I have a couple of questions on the levees. The levee on Water Street has not had gates since 2015 because I complained that the gates were rusted open, so they just removed them. So there are no gates off of Water Street, neither on the Cahokia Heights side or the Dupo side. And you were talking about detention ponds with the mosquitoes and things like that we have in the area. How is that going to be addressed so we don't import illness, basically? Because we have had West Nile and dengue on this side of the river as well as the other side. The other question I had is said that one of your slides, sir, said that Hearst was finalizing the plan with the city. They would look at what you were doing, was my understanding from the slide. That's why I had a question about it, because it said the city and Hearst Engineering would see what your guys' plan was, and then they would finalize it.
All right, good. So Ariana, I'll take the question about the gate, and then Ashley, I may have you, if we need to pull the slide back up, just let me know there regarding the Hearst Rocher processing side for plan development and Corps of Engineers review. So what I would say, Ariana, is the gate on Water Street, is that you're talking about the closure panel gates that are put in place during hot water events that crosses over the Prairie du Pont Canal. Is that the correct one?
No, sir. It's the levee. It may be. It's not a canal. It's the levee at the end of Water Street as you go into Dupo. Residents call it the Dupo Cut.
Okay. So that particular feature during low water events is open for, obviously, for traffic flow.
Right.
The Metro, yeah, and so the Metro East Sanitary District has an operations plan. So the Corps of Engineers built and designed the infrastructure. The local sponsor, Metro East Sanitary District, operates, maintains the entire East St. Louis levee system. When river levels start to rise and are starting to get to that a point that the closure gate, the actual closure structure, so the gates are right at close proximity to where that the Water Street passes through the levee area. They're in a locked location. The Metro East Sanitary District then mobilizes and then takes those gates and then slides them. It's a panel section and slides into its location. So I'm going to share a quick aerial photo here. Let me make sure. Sometimes I am challenged. Are you seeing a aerial photo on your screen?
Only part of it. Just a second. Let me see if I can.
So it should be, it looks like a street that's going right across some water. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
okay, let me stop you because I don't want you to like eat up all this time. I can tell you that regardless of the height of the levee, those gates have not been put in, even during the flooding you were talking about in 2018, 2019. There was nothing there. There was a pile of sandbags. So I'm not sure where they're keeping the gates to slide them into the locking slots, but they didn't come out and put them in when the water was right under that roadway during the floods. And like you said, it was 100+ days of flooding. Also, that levee leaks along a buried gas line right through my front yard. So every time it rains, to bring the levee up to the second level of the, because it's 3 tiers, every time it gets up to that second level, I have water in my yard. And it stays there until the levee goes back down. And it's running along the outside as best I can tell. I'm not digging a gas line up to do it. And I'm not an engineer, I'm a geologist, but I do know that water flows on the outside of pipes too. And that's what appears to be happening.
I would say that the only thing I could say, from the seepage side is during high water events, whether that water was coming through on the seepage on the interior, if the only way that we stop seepage is through what's called a cutoff wall that's constructed on the riverward of the actual levee itself.
Right.
Those are extremely costly features. They go all the way down to bedrock. There are situations, if there isn't proper real estate, that we implement that. That is not a design consideration that we did back in the 50s.
Question.
So.
Is the fact that back in 2003, when you guys issued your report called Without Levees, my particular belief after reading it was that they were right. And then I read through all the rest of the things that happened. And it wasn't as simple as the state said, oh, okay, you can pass a sales tax. The county actually sued the Army Corps of Engineers to keep them from decertifying our levees. And they won. And my question is, how come the people here have been left with these? I mean, you could say it's not accredited and then turn around and say it's accredited. When I moved in here in 2014, I couldn't buy flood insurance. All of a sudden, 2 years ago, I could suddenly buy flood insurance. So I just think it's a really bad idea to just fix one sewer line and think that's going to fix this.
Well, so I would say that from fixing one sewer line, that is, the sewer line is not intended to mitigate anything associated with levee improvements or challenges that you face during high water conditions. The sewer project, separate authority, primary intent, this would be the first of others. If there's additional assistance, obviously with the trunk sewer lining, that it's identified that there's additional sewer lining that needs to occur upstream of or upslope within the pipes of where we're currently focused, you need to start with the bottom up. That trunk sewer goes all the way up to the Flying J truck stop on Illinois Route 15. So with that, if that's the type of assistance and the extent of assistance that's needed, that will be part of the evaluation and analysis that we would continue forward with. But again, it's got to be driven by and based upon what's the local jurisdictions need. And then ultimately the need.
Saying that the city of Cahokia is supposed to pick up 25% of the tab. Did I get that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I can tell you right now, there is no way that this town can come up with that kind of money. It's just a fact. I don't know if you've ever actually been here other than like for, a visit, but people are leaving, businesses are leaving, and have been for years. And we cannot stand any more taxes.
Yeah, so the intent is the intent is not to, provide federal assistance so that it ultimately commensurately has to raise local tax.
Well, where is the city supposed to get the money?
So one of the things that we do look at the financials. That's one piece. And then there's also, as we were talking earlier, that there's a larger interagency partnership with other funding sources that are available through the state of Illinois.
Okay, I don't know if you guys are aware, but citizens of this town cannot find out where the city council is meeting and when and what the agenda is. We have to file Freedom of Information Act requests to find out what's going on in our own town. That's what whoever it was, Leah was talking about with the local authorities, is that the people here don't trust them because of past actions. And the fact that we don't have access to them.
Hi, this is Elena with Senator Durbin. This concern with the matching non-federal share has been raised to us. We've been raising it with the city when we discussed this with them. We have seen, several iterations of a, outline of various funding opportunities that the city has been provided across the state and county and federal levels. So as it pertains to the non-federal cost share, we are doing our best to confirm over and over and over that they have this funding. So city, I understand assurances from the city are not what we are really able to, put our full trust in. However, the city has, been hearing often from Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth, the governor. We are all looking at this project very seriously with hello? Did you need to say something else? I apologize.
No, go ahead on. This is Miss Yvette. I'll talk when you get through.
Oh, hi, Miss Yvette. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, keep talking.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. As it pertains to, I think we all appreciate, the continued discussion of how non-communicative the city has been with you guys. And we continue to ask them to meet with you and to be upfront and transparent. We continue to discuss that with them, and they unfortunately are not following through. And we're going to continue to bring this up and mention it and ask them to meet with you all, to join your meetings, to be transparent. And I think that, to Sean's point, the federal government conducts deep oversight into these projects. And we absolutely will make sure that whatever project we pursue is financially feasible.
Elena, this is Nicole. To that point about oversight, I saw a slide that Sean had. I don't know who can answer, but it said the city is responsible for future operation, maintenance, repair, rehabilitation, and replacement. Will there be a contract in place between U.S. Army Corps or whatever entity, or is this just kind of like a promise to behave and like that? Because money is tied to that, right? Like you need money to maintain, to operate, to repair. So is there a contractual obligation in place that'll be between Cahokia Heights and USA's, or is this just hey, by the way, you need to make sure you maintain this trunk line and the other things that are put in place once they're there.
Yeah, I'll
Sorry, Ashley,
speak
go ahead.
to that. The project, once completed, is turned back over to the non-federal sponsor. That's standard with any federal project that is not federalized, and a majority of them are not. So the project in and of itself gets turned back over to the non-federal sponsor, who in this case is the city. So they are responsible for 100% of the operation and maintenance of the system after it gets turned back over to them. So unfortunately, there isn't any contract in place after the fact with the federal government to be able to operate and maintain the completed project. The assistance is limited to the implementation of the project.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Thank you, Ashley.
And Nicole and anyone else, I think that if we all would like to discuss, on another, on another call, options to figure out how we can all put our heads together and make sure that this does not, that maintenance is continued, that rehab and other projects are completed. We're happy to have those conversations with you. This is not a one and done. We are hoping to continue to be a part of the discussion of what comes next and what is not just in the immediate term, but the long term. So, certainly we're, Senator Durbin's office, we're happy to look at, past similar situations and the like with you guys. And with that, I do want to, I know Miss Yvette, I apologize. You have been waiting so patiently.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions. The first one was with the Corps engineer, when you all were talking about Ping Pong Place and Parkside. Did you all also include Piat Place, or is that considered Parkside also? Because, that's an important P over here for me because I am in Piat Place area, which is on the other side of Parkside. And I'm wondering, when you guys are saying the areas that you're focusing in on, are you leaving out Piat Place, or are you including Piat Place as part of Parkside? Because we flood a lot and we have a lot of infrastructure problems over here with both raw sewage and street drains overlapping and contaminated water. And as I speak now, I called Illinois American Water Company last evening, and today they've yet to come because we still have water running down my side of the street, which I'm sure is coming from a break up the road on my block. So when I'm saying these things, I'm trying to see, is Piat Place inclusive? And also when you were talking about the budget, getting the construction budget for the $3.5 million approved. So what exactly, when you do get it approved, what are you going to be working on? And I know you're going to start in Ping Pong Place, but are you going to really come on down here to PI? Because we do have to have boats to rescue us out. And we do have, excuse my French, raw sewage still coming up in our yards that we have to clean out, and also coming up in our house, even if it's not flooding on the levee, and the levee is enough, we get over spillage and overflow of rain. These are just conditions that we're dealing with in our area. And it's not just my home and health that's affected, it's my neighbors and everybody that live in this area, which we call PI Place, that have these issues as well. So can you address those two for me, please?
Yeah, and what is your first name? I met you at one of the planning committee meetings. I recognize your voice.
I am Yvette Lyles, the lady on the walker.
And so it's good to hear from you again. And I apologize, I'd forgotten your name there, but I did recognize your voice. So regarding Piat, just correct me, is Piat is to the west of Interstate 255? Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And we yep, you got us right. We're right off of Lake Drive and 255 west, off the other side of 255.
All right, so
we are really underwater and under sewage in this area when these things occur.
So I think my response to you, there's no way to sugarcoat this, is that evaluation within that red boxed area that we're looking at is focused in Parkside, Terrace, and then the I'll call it North Centerville. Why was that identified like that? That was identified through, again, just coordination among agencies and also coming back to Hearst-Rocher. I'm not pointing the finger, but it's a reality that
even though we have raw sewage? Yeah, that's
excuse me?
raw sewage we have in this area. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, and I apologize. But raw sewage is a priority to me, and especially when we keep having failures of it over here and we get contaminated water and raw sewage and no one is letting us know when it's crossing over with each other and spilling into each other. So excuse me, but raw sewage and health and water consumption is priority to the quality of life anywhere.
I can't refute that. You hit the nail on the head. So I would say that the only thing I could say to you is that from the assistance side of things that the Senator Durbin's office was instrumental in seeing that increase from 45 million even up to 100 million. And that is currently identified in the Senate's version of the Water Resources Development Act for 2022. With that, it's not a quick process, ma'am. And I would say that when we had our meeting with East St. Louis City Manager, Public Works Director, and engineering representatives from Thompson Civil, that we talked about what were the wastewater infrastructure needs within East St. Louis. So we had the conversation. What I don't have is a quick solution for you. I mean, so what I would say is your talking points are on point. If there is any way that your local officials are hearing from their citizens, it seemed to me that Thompson Civil has a good understanding of what is occurring within the Piat location. I think even so much so that is it St. Clair Avenue just to the north that there's a large.
I'm sorry, but that's not true. Yeah, that's not true that the engineering, I mean, I think I just heard you say, Sean, that I think you said not to point fingers, but Hearst-Rocher kind of confirmed that this area over in Parkside, Parkside certainly does flood, right? Those residents also need to be rescued by boats and have had to historically, but to Miss Yvette's point, Piat Place floods can be within minutes, but also Ping Pong, right? Piat Place and Ping Pong are missing from your maps, and right there, these are the two most. And so for those to be just severe, like I'm flabbergasted from this conversation. How, to Ariana's point, where the public officials live, which is what our team has noticed too. And there are lift stations that need to be rectified. Those get fixed very quickly. But the folks that have been suffering for decades, where Miss Yvette lives, and these other areas, Ping Pong near Canal One, but not in that red box, that's not where these areas are. And so there is a disconnect on what Hearst-Rocher is saying, which, to your point, you're doing with the sponsor. We're also using language that's not very accessible here, because I can't hardly follow what any of you guys have been saying for most of the chat. And I do very much appreciate this conversation. I think it's a good first step, but I'm not an engineer, and so I can't follow a lot of these things. But I think you're saying sponsor. I think that means the city, right? So the city of Cahokia Heights, right? You do what their need is. But what their need is the engineering firm Hearst-Rocher works for them, and they work with them. And as I think Ariana mentioned, they're finalizing the plans, but they don't have a direct connect to the citizens and what their needs are. And Miss Yvette is telling you they're underwater over there and they have sewage in their homes. We just had residents not less than a month ago who have sewage literally under their homes. Like their home is infested with mosquitoes. It's barely livable.
Yeah.
And that's right now, no rain. And so I guess that's what we're trying to figure out, like how this represents the worst and the best need for everyone in Cahokia Heights, not just Centerville, but all of these folks, and what you all are showing on these maps and what they've continually communicated to Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth's office, we're not seeing on these maps. I think that's what everyone's trying to tell you here.
I'm not, so unless I'm completely mistaken where ping pong is at, the area that's outlined within red, ping pong falls right within that location. And,
It's part
it may
of
be
it. It's part of it, but the whole trunk line thing is blowing my mind. I mean, one, per Malia's comment, Hearst Roche officials have said they didn't recommend the trunk line, but if they did, it would have been where East St. Louis connects. Your comments are directly opposed to what you're saying. You don't see there's not necessarily a connection there, but you know, what we're told, what the maps show, what everything that Hearst Roche has said explicitly, and what the maps show from our end is that, and from Commonfield's records, is that East St. Louis and Inner Centerville systems are directly connected. And if you have knowledge that's different than that, that's very helpful. And if they're not directly connected, then so be it. But that's causing some of, well, they're saying the issue of why, right, these issues are happening in ping pong, which has sewage issues and some of the severe overflows over there. And so I guess that's some of the disconnect that I'm having.
So I think that the part of the disconnect is that we're virtual and we're not able to point at maps, and that's not pointing fingers. But what I think the primary piece is that my understanding on everything that we've heard, read, reviewed is that the red boxed area that we're evaluating from a flood hazard analysis standpoint directly contains ping pong. And then that area within the red box, the piece that's Cahokia Heights, or formerly called Old Centerville or North Centerville, is directly connected to East St. Louis's sanitary sewer system. And is a reason why there's sanitary sewer overflows during dry weather conditions even. So with that, and so we have also started to look at within the Terrace subdivision that's just on the north side of State Street, is where there was a number of citizens' complaints from residents from East St. Louis that there are flooding problems there. And what is the source of those flooding problems? Is it poor, deficient storm sewer overflows, or is that from the sanitary sewer system? And then part of it looks to be connected. The source of that flooding looks to potentially be connected to the Parkside pump station and its inoperability. So if we can solve the problem with the Parkside pump station, then that appears that it may address some of the sewer overflows that are existing both within East St. Louis and within Cahokia Heights. The other piece is there was reference that North Centerville area within our red box, Cahokia Heights, that there is an evaluation for an interceptor, sanitary sewer interceptor, that would take those residents off of East St. Louis's sanitary sewer system and move that sanitary flow south and connect it into the trunk sewer line. Now that's a project that Hearst Roche is evaluating and could be implemented with grant dollars that are available through the state. But so that's another piece to the overall puzzle that would be part of the overall analysis that's taking place.
If I could just jump in though, going back to Ms. Yvette's point, Piatt Place is not being evaluated for flooding fixes, as I understand it, and none of the things you described will necessarily alleviate anything directly within Piatt Place. There is a history of the Corps being aware of Piatt Place flooding, and I would just say that if the Corps can take on advisement, that is a very high priority area to focus on as soon as you possibly can, and to come back to the community with a proposal for how you plan to do that. I think that would build more trust than saying you've got a problem and we can't get to it right now. So I'm just going to suggest that. I will also note that when we raised Piatt Place to US EPA, it took them a while. We said on the drinking water side, people have drinking water problems here. Why isn't Piat Place in your order as an area of focus where monitoring is required? Again, it took them 6 months, but they added Piat Place in. So I think, again, as these things are being pointed out, if we can put them on the to-do list and figure out how to fast track it, that would be greatly appreciated.
Agreed.
Thank you both, Nicole and Malia. Thank you both very much. Thank you, ladies. And I'm going to say to the, I'm sorry, go ahead on.
No, go ahead, ma'am. I'm so sorry.
I'm going to say to the Corps of Engineering, I wish you had been at Washington University when I was a guest speaker on their panel. And one of the things for the Corps of Engineering, even though you guys did come and listen to Centerville Citizens for Change, engaging with the community helps identify the problem more accurately and more appropriately because we live in these areas. So we know what's going on. We know what we're facing with. We know where the issues are at versus another company who works with somebody who knows somebody who's in on this and that and that. All the extra-rhetorical political jargon where, you know, you look out for each other. The thing of it is when you're talking to people, some people do understand it, some don't. So the best thing you can do is talk to everyone in a layman's terms so everyone can understand exactly what you're saying. That would help with the comprehension, and you guys engaging with the citizens, coming out, doing whatever you got to do to get people engaging with you all, it increases our confidence and our communication with you all because you're the ones that's going to be taking care of these problems. So just a tidbit, and really seriously, we need to plug in Piat. That needs to be, whatever you can do to get in there, it needs to get got in there. I'm sorry, and that's it. I'm done. Thank you.
I would just like to add one thing to what she had said, and it's not just dry weather, flooding, or whatever. It takes less than a quarter inch of rain to cause flooding in a lot of neighborhoods here. The St. Joseph's Gardens, and that's off of the main trunk line, but those people's houses flood constantly and sewage backs up constantly. And it doesn't take a deluge. It doesn't take 100-year flood. It takes less than half an inch of rain. And we've got water and we've got sewage overflowing in neighborhoods that have elderly people, disabled people, and children. And in Piat Place, in Ping Pong, it's just a mess. And it's not anybody's fault that lives here. I bought an FHA HUD approved home, but nobody decided to tell me it was in a floodplain. And the map that they had at the city was from 2002. So I didn't know, or I wouldn't have bought my home in a floodplain. They're still buying and selling homes. And I just, like I said, I don't, what she just said, what just Ms. Yvette just said is perfectly correct. That somebody's not talking to the right people. I think you're talking to the administration and not to the people.
Any other comments or questions?
Last question. Are you aware of the fact that the current administration or people that are a part of it are named defendants in a lawsuit because of this very problem?
So
are you aware that several of the people on the amendment on the administration's team are convicted felons whose records were expunged so that they could serve the city?
So as far as where the jurisdiction is, I don't know. But Ariana, I do know who you are. I had the opportunity to sit next to you at a planning meeting. It was a stormy night. And it was a meeting that was held by the Heartlands Conservancy. So I have had the opportunity to meet with you. This is an area that, based upon the kind of the timeline that I'd identified with our involvement with understanding what are the challenges that the residents are facing, started with this particular group. Then we started to touch get in contact with the agencies. What do you know? Then it led us to talking to the local jurisdiction, and then it's built into getting plugged into the work that the Heartlands Conservancy is doing. Now, is that the right approach? I'm hearing that not necessarily. The other piece is that, you know, being involved and engaged in the process for the Prairie du Pont watershed study has been an avenue for us to glean information that particular group has received on where are problems that are specifically identified by the community, on where are the needs at. That has helped to inform us. So while I may not have engaged you directly, information that you're providing directly to the Prairie du Pont watershed study has helped to inform us of where to focus. Now, Ms. Beth, I will say that in talking with you, that I completely missed the Piat place. Now, would that have changed anything of where we're at and what we had briefed at this point? Unfortunately, no, not at this time. We had been dialed in on the particular area of St. Clair Avenue to Lake Drive, 157 to 255. That's what we were had identified, and that's where we were funded. If the one question that I do have that for Thompson Civil, City of East St. Louis's engineer, is if there's improvements made to the Parkside pump station, if it's up and fully operational, does that have any benefit to the west side of Harding Ditch, west side 255, Piat Place? That is a question that I have. There's indications of things that led me to believe that there might be a connection, even though it's located across the Harding Ditch. So while we may not be looking specifically, the question is does that pump station serve a larger watershed than what we've delineated or what we were identifying on our map? And so that is an unknown, and it's something that we would need to look into. But as it relates, point taken regarding the sanitary sewer infrastructure needs at Piat in proximity within East St. Louis, I don't have a quick solution for you, man. Okay, so Elena, I think that, I don't want to cut anybody short on questions and such, but that the information that we provided to the Citizens Committee this evening, concludes our portion of just information sharing, and then also for obtaining, feedback from the community. What I would say is that we'll still continue to stay plugged in to the efforts within the Prairie du Pont watershed study, and hopefully be engaging and seeing you, in the near future at some of those upcoming meetings that are going to be occurring this month. So with that, Elena, do you want me to flip it back over to you for any closing comments?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sean and Ashley, and thank all of you guys for coming tonight. This is how we get to the nitty-gritty, and hearing your guys' comments are so important to how we evolve this plan and project and pursue what you guys are living and trying to bring to our attention. So this is one of many, many discussions. I ask all of you to please take advantage of us as me, myself, Elena Haynes with Senator Durbin, Ashley and Sean with the Corps. Please use all of us as points of contact with any questions, concerns. We regularly stay in contact. And if you are not hearing back from us, please don't hesitate to keep reaching out to us. We definitely prioritize this community and this discussion amongst our teams. This is truly really appreciated. So Thank you for joining yet another discussion on another project going on in your communities. And we absolutely will take all of this back, discuss it, analyze it, and see where we can make changes that reflect this feedback. And please, like I said, continue to engage with us and let us know if you guys want to have another meeting or if you have more feedback to share. We encourage that and embrace that. And I think that that's it for me. And I just want to say have a wonderful evening and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you, Elena.